Maya Johnson pulled her black SUV into the driveway of 1247 Maple Street. The house was bigger than anything she had ever lived in. 2 stories, white walls, and a green lawn that looked perfect. She turned off the engine and sat for a moment. After 15 years in the military, this felt strange. No base, no barracks, no other soldiers around, just her and a house in a quiet neighborhood called Willowbrook. She got out of the car and looked around. The street was lined with similar houses. Each one had a perfect lawn and clean driveway. Every mailbox looked the same. Maya had paid cash for this house. The real estate agent seemed surprised when she did that. But Maya had saved her money for years. She wanted a place where she could finally rest. The moving truck would come tomorrow. Tonight she only had 2 bags and a small box. She walked to the front door and used her new key. The house smelled like fresh paint. The rooms were empty and quiet. Maya set her bags down in the living room. She had bought this house to have peace. After all the places she had been and all the things she had seen, peace sounded good. Maya was not like other people. She worked for a special part of the Army called Delta Force. Most people had never heard of it. Those who had heard of it knew it was for the best soldiers. Maya had been to many countries. She had done things she could never talk about. She had skills that most people could not imagine. But here in Willowbrook, she just wanted to be a normal neighbor. She walked through the empty house. The kitchen had new appliances. The bedrooms had big windows. The backyard had a fence and trees. It was everything she had dreamed of when she was sleeping in tents in the desert or mountains. She opened her small box and took out a few items. A photo of her parents, a medal she had earned, a book she liked to read. These things would make the house feel more like home. As Maya unpacked, she noticed someone watching from across the street. A man stood at his window. He was older, maybe 50, with gray hair. He held a coffee cup and stared at her house. Maya was trained to notice things like this. She did not look directly at him, but she knew he was there. After a few minutes, he moved away from the window. Maya did not think much about it. New neighbors often looked when someone moved in. She went back to settling in. She would buy furniture later. For now, she had an air mattress and some basic things. She was used to living with very little. The next morning, Maya woke up early. This was normal for her. In the military, she always got up before the sun. She made coffee and stood in her kitchen, looking out at the backyard. Birds sang in the trees. The morning was quiet and peaceful. This was what she had wanted. Around 8 o'clock, the moving truck arrived. 2 men started bringing in boxes and furniture. Maya had not bought much. A couch, a bed, a table, and some chairs. Most of her belongings were books, clothes, and some special equipment she kept locked in cases. The movers did not ask questions about the heavy locked boxes. Maya paid them well to not ask questions. As the movers worked, Maya noticed the same man from yesterday. He was outside now, pretending to check his mail. But Maya could tell he was really watching her. She had learned to spot surveillance in dangerous places around the world. This felt like surveillance too, just in a different setting. The man walked over to her driveway. He was wearing a polo shirt and khaki pants. He had a small notebook in his hand. Maya could see he thought he was important. "Good morning," he said with a smile that did not seem real. "I'm Robert Sterling. I'm the president of the Willowbrook Homeowners Association." Maya nodded. "Maya Johnson. Nice to meet you." "Welcome to the neighborhood," Robert said. "I wanted to give you this." He handed her a thick packet of papers. "These are our community rules and regulations. We work hard to keep Willowbrook looking nice. I'm sure you understand." Maya took the papers. There were a lot of them. Rules about lawn care, parking, paint colors, and many other things. She had read about homeowners associations when she bought the house. She knew they made rules, but she had not expected so many. "Thank you," Maya said. "I'll read through these." Robert looked at her moving truck. "I hope all your belongings are appropriate for the neighborhood," he said. "We maintain certain standards here." Maya felt something cold in his voice. She had heard this tone before. It was the sound of someone who thought they had power over others. In her job, she had dealt with people like this. They were often bullies who picked on those they thought were weak. "Everything is fine," Maya said calmly. Robert looked at the boxes being carried into her house. His eyes stopped on the locked cases. "What's in those boxes?" "Personal items," Maya replied. She did not owe him an explanation, and she would not give one. Robert wrote something in his notebook. "Well, I'll let you get settled." Remember, we have our monthly meeting next Thursday. All residents should attend." He walked away, still writing in his little book. Maya watched him go. She had a feeling this man would be trouble. In her line of work, she had learned to trust her instincts about people. Robert Sterling felt like someone who would cause problems for others. Maya decided she would be ready if he did. 3 weeks after Maya moved to Willowbrook, the letters started coming. The first one arrived on a Tuesday morning. Maya found it stuck to her front door with tape. It was from the Willowbrook Homeowners Association. The letter said her grass was too long and needed to be cut immediately. Maya looked at her lawn. It was the same length as every other lawn on the street. She had even measured it, to be sure. But the letter said she had 24 hours to fix the problem, or face a fine of $100. Maya had dealt with much bigger problems than this. She got her lawnmower from the garage and cut the grass even shorter. She thought that would be the end of it. She was wrong. 2 days later, another letter appeared on her door. This time, Robert Sterling said her trash cans were in the wrong place. The letter included a photo of her cans at the curb on trash day. Maya looked at the photo, then at her neighbor's trash cans. They were all in the same place. But only Maya got a letter. Maya began to understand what was happening. Robert Sterling was targeting her. She had seen this before in different places. Some people used whatever power they had to make life hard for others. Robert had the Homeowners Association. That was his power. Maya decided to be smart about this. She started keeping records. She took photos of her lawn, her trash cans, and her driveway. She saved every letter Robert sent. If this became a legal problem, she would be ready. The letters kept coming. Maya was cited for parking her car in her own driveway. The letter said it was parked improperly, but gave no details about what that meant. She was cited for having unauthorized visitors when the mail carrier delivered a package. She was cited for lawn decorations when she put up a small American flag for Veterans Day. Each letter threatened fines. Each letter demanded immediate action. Maya followed every rule perfectly, but the letters continued. She was being harassed, and she knew it. One evening, Maya was working in her garage when she heard voices outside. She looked through the window and saw Robert talking to 2 other men. They were standing on the sidewalk, but they kept looking at her house. Maya recognized the type immediately. The 2 men with Robert were trying to look tough. They wore black shirts and cargo pants. One had a badge clipped to his belt that looked like a police badge from far away. The other had what looked like a radio. They acted like they were important, but Maya could tell they were not real police officers. She listened to their conversation. Robert was telling them about the problem resident on Maple Street. He said Maya was not the right fit for the neighborhood. He told them to keep an eye on her and report anything suspicious. The 2 men nodded like they were getting orders from a real boss. Maya learned their names by listening. Tom was the shorter one with the fake badge. Rick was taller and had a shaved head. Both men seemed eager to please Robert. After Robert left, Tom and Rick walked slowly past Maya's house. They pretended to be on patrol, but Maya knew they were just trying to intimidate her. She stayed in her garage and watched them. In her military training, she had learned that information was power. The more she knew about these men, the better she could handle them. Over the next few days, Maya saw Tom and Rick in the neighborhood often. They drove around in a white car with fake police-style lights on top. They wore shirts that said Willowbrook Security on them. They carried radios and what looked like weapons on their belts. Maya did some research. She used her computer to look up Tom and Rick. She found that Tom used to work as a security guard at a shopping mall. He had been fired for being too aggressive with customers. Rick had worked at a car lot, checking to make sure cars were locked. Neither man had any real law enforcement training, but they acted like they were police officers. Maya saw them stop other residents and ask for identification. She watched them write fake tickets for minor things like walking dogs without leashes. Most neighbors seemed afraid of them. Maya was not afraid, but she was concerned. In her experience, people who pretended to have authority they did not have were dangerous. They often went too far to prove themselves. Tom and Rick seemed like the type who would escalate a situation just to feel important. The harassment got worse. Maya started finding notices on her car windshield almost every day. The notices said she was parked illegally, even when she was parked in her own driveway. Sometimes the notices were left in the middle of the night. One morning, Maya found her trash cans knocked over and garbage scattered across her lawn. She checked her security camera and saw Tom and Rick walking by her house around 2 in the morning. They had kicked over her trash cans and kept walking. Maya cleaned up the mess and saved the video. She was building a case against these men, but she wanted to see how far they would go before she took action. In her military experience, it was often better to let enemies reveal their full plan before stopping them. The next week, Maya came home from buying groceries to find Tom and Rick in her driveway. They were looking into her car windows and writing notes. When they saw her coming, they did not move away. Instead, they stood in front of her car and blocked her path. "Excuse me," Maya said politely. "I need to get into my driveway." Tom stepped forward. He put his hand on his fake badge. "We're conducting a security check," he said. "There have been reports of suspicious activity at this address." Maya knew this was a lie. She was the only person who lived at this address, and she had not done anything suspicious. But she stayed calm. Getting angry would only make things worse. "What kind of suspicious activity?" Maya asked. Rick joined the conversation. "We're not required to give you that information," he said. "But we need to search your vehicle for stolen goods." Maya almost laughed. These men had no authority to search anything. They were not police officers. They had no warrants. They had no legal right to even be in her driveway. But she could see they believed their own act. They really thought they had power over her. "I'm going to go into my house now," Maya said. She started walking toward her front door. Tom stepped in front of her. "Not until we complete our investigation," he said. Maya stopped walking. This had gone from harassment to something more serious. These men were now preventing her from entering her own home. That was illegal detention, and Maya knew it. She also knew that people who went this far usually went further. Maya looked at both men carefully. She could see they were nervous but trying to act tough. She could see they had items on their belts that looked like weapons. She could see they thought they were in control of the situation. They were wrong about that. Maya had been in real dangerous situations with real dangerous people. These two men were pretending to be something they were not. But Maya was the real thing. She just hoped they would back down before she had to show them the difference. Maya stood in her driveway holding her grocery bags. Tom and Rick blocked her path to the front door. Behind them, she could see Robert Sterling walking across the street with his clipboard. He had a big smile on his face like he was enjoying what was happening. "I need to put my groceries away," Maya said calmly. "Please move out of my way." Tom shook his head. "Like I said, we're conducting an investigation. You need to cooperate with us." Maya set her grocery bags down on the ground. She needed her hands free in case the situation got worse. Her military training had taught her to always be ready. She could feel the weight of her concealed pistol under her jacket, but she hoped she would not need it. Robert reached them and stood next to his fake security team. "Good afternoon, Maya," he said, still smiling. "Tom and Rick are just doing their job. We've had some concerns about activities at your residence." "What activities?" Maya asked. She kept her voice level and calm. Getting emotional would not help her right now. Robert looked at his clipboard. "Unusual visitors at odd hours. Strange packages being delivered. Suspicious behavior." He read from his notes like he was a real investigator. Maya knew all of these things were lies. She had very few visitors. Her packages were normal things like books and clothes. The only suspicious behavior in the neighborhood was coming from the three men standing in front of her. "I think there's been a mistake," Maya said. "I haven't done anything wrong." Rick stepped closer to her. Maya noticed he kept his hand near something on his belt. It looked like a weapon, but she could not tell what kind from this distance. "That's what all criminals say," Rick said. Maya felt a flash of anger. She had served her country for 15 years. She had risked her life many times to keep people safe. Being called a criminal by a fake security guard was insulting. But she pushed the anger down. Staying calm was more important than defending her honor. "I'm not a criminal," Maya said simply. Tom pulled out a small notebook, copying Robert's style. "We have reports that you've been watching the neighborhood at strange times, standing at your windows, taking pictures." This was partially true. Maya did watch the neighborhood sometimes, but that was because Tom and Rick had been harassing her for weeks. She had been documenting their behavior, and every good soldier knew to watch for threats. "I look out my window sometimes," Maya admitted. "It's my house, see?" Robert said to his security team. "She admits it. She's been conducting surveillance on law-abiding citizens." Maya realized these men had twisted her normal behavior into something that sounded criminal. They had taken the fact that she looked out her own windows and made it seem wrong. This was a common tactic used by people who wanted to justify their bad actions. Tom opened his notebook and started writing. We also have reports of you carrying suspicious packages into your house. Packages that could contain weapons or illegal substances. Maya thought about the boxes she had moved in. Some of them did contain weapons, but they were legal weapons that she owned as part of her military service. She also had training equipment and other gear that was perfectly legal, but she did not owe these men any explanations. My personal belongings are none of your business, Maya said. Rick moved closer. They are our business if they threaten the safety of this neighborhood. Maya could see that Rick was trying to intimidate her by getting in her personal space. This was another tactic she recognized. Some people thought they could scare others by standing too close, but Maya had been in situations where real dangerous people had tried to intimidate her. Rick was not scary compared to enemy soldiers with real weapons. Please step back, Maya said firmly. Rick did not step back. Instead, he put his hand on his belt. Near what Maya could now see was a taser. You need to answer our questions, he said. Maya's training kicked in. She quickly looked around and assessed the situation. She was outnumbered 3-1. Rick had a taser and Tom had something that looked like pepper spray. Robert was older and probably not a physical threat, but he was clearly the leader giving orders. Maya was standing in her own driveway, which was good. She knew the layout of her property. She had multiple escape routes if needed. Her car was behind the 3 men, but her house was to her left. If things got really bad, she could reach her front door in a few steps. But Maya also knew that running away would not solve this problem. These men would just come back another time. They might even get more aggressive if they thought they had scared her. Maya decided to try one more time to end this peacefully. I'm going to get my phone and call the police, Maya said. She reached slowly into her pocket. Tom quickly moved to block her. No phone calls, he said. Not until we finish our investigation. Now Maya knew these men had crossed a serious line. They were preventing her from calling for help. They were detaining her against her will. They were threatening her with weapons. This was no longer harassment. This was criminal behavior. Maya pulled her phone out despite Tom's objection. She held it up so all 3 men could see it. I'm calling 911, she announced. Rick reached for his taser. Put the phone down, he ordered. Maya did not put the phone down. Instead, she started recording video. I want everyone to see what's happening here, she said. 3 men are threatening me in my own driveway and preventing me from entering my house. Robert looked nervous for the first time. Turn that camera off, he demanded. No, Maya said simply. She kept recording. Tom and Rick looked at Robert for instructions. They clearly had not expected Maya to fight back like this. They thought she would be scared and do whatever they told her to do. They were wrong. Maya continued recording and speaking clearly. My name is Maya Johnson. I live at 1247 Maple Street in Willowbrook. 3 men are currently detaining me in my driveway without legal authority. One of them has a weapon and has threatened to use it. Rick's face turned red. I said turn that camera off. He took another step toward Maya. Maya did not back down. She had faced much scarier people than Rick in much more dangerous places. No, she said again. Robert realized his plan was falling apart. He had expected Maya to be intimidated and compliant. Instead, she was documenting everything they were doing. If this video got out, it would show that he had been harassing a resident with fake security guards. Maybe we should let her go inside, Robert suggested, but Tom and Rick were too worked up to stop now. They had committed to this confrontation, and they did not want to back down in front of their boss. Tom reached for what looked like pepper spray on his belt. Last warning, Tom said. Put the phone down and cooperate. Maya kept recording. She could see that these men were about to escalate to violence. She had hoped it would not come to this, but she was ready if it did. She had skills that these fake security guards could not imagine. Maya took a small step back to give herself more room to move. She kept her phone up and recording. She spoke clearly so her words would be captured on video. I am a United States Army soldier. I'm standing in my own driveway. I have done nothing wrong. These men are threatening me with weapons. She looked directly at the camera. If something happens to me, these 3 men are responsible. Rick pulled his taser from his belt. Rick held the taser in his hands, pointing it at Maya. The small device had 2 metal prongs that would shoot out wires carrying electricity. Maya could see his finger was near the trigger. He was breathing hard and looked excited, like he had been waiting for this moment. "Put that phone down right now," Rick shouted. "This is your last warning." Maya kept recording. She could see everything clearly now. Rick's taser was real, even if his authority was fake. Tom had his hand on a canister of pepper spray. Robert stood behind both men, no longer smiling. He looked worried, like maybe he was starting to understand that this had gone too far. "I'm not putting my phone down," Maya said calmly, "and I'm not answering any more questions. I'm going into my house." She took a step toward her front door. Rick moved to block her path, holding the taser higher. "You're not going anywhere," Rick said. His voice was shaking with anger. "We're placing you under citizen's arrest for suspicious activity and failure to cooperate with a security investigation." Maya almost laughed. These men really believed they had the power to arrest people. They had convinced themselves that their fake badges and fake authority were real. Maya knew that citizen's arrest was a real thing, but it only applied when someone witnessed an actual crime. Looking out her own windows was not a crime. "You have no authority to arrest me," Maya said. "You're not police officers. You're not security guards. You're just neighbors playing dress-up." Tom's face turned red. He pulled out his pepper spray canister and held it up. "We have every right to protect this neighborhood from criminals." Now Maya was facing two weapons, Rick's taser on her left, Tom's pepper spray on her right. Robert stood behind them, writing frantically in his notebook like he was documenting evidence of a real crime. Maya's military training took over completely. She analyzed the situation like she would analyze any combat scenario. Two hostiles with less lethal weapons at close range. One non-combatant providing support. Multiple escape routes available. High probability that hostiles were untrained and would make tactical mistakes. Maya also noticed something important. Rick kept looking at his taser like he was not sure how to use it. Tom held his pepper spray canister upside down. These men had weapons, but they did not know how to use them properly. That gave Maya an advantage. "This is assault," Maya said, still recording with her phone. "You are threatening me with weapons." "That's a felony. Shut up," Rick yelled. He took another step closer, now only about 6 feet away from Maya. Maya could see that Rick was losing control of his emotions. People who lost control made bad decisions. They became predictable. Maya had seen this happen many times in dangerous situations. The enemy who got angry was usually the enemy who made a fatal mistake. "Rick, maybe we should just let her go inside," Robert said nervously. "We got our point across." But Rick was too worked up to listen to Robert now. He felt like he had to prove himself. He had pulled out his weapon and made threats. If he backed down now, he would look weak in front of the other men. "No way," Rick said. "She's been disrespecting us for weeks. She thinks she's better than us. Time to show her who's really in charge here." Maya recognized this type of thinking. Rick was not really angry about suspicious activity or neighborhood security. He was angry because Maya had not been afraid of him. His ego was hurt because she had not submitted to his fake authority. Now he wanted to hurt her to make himself feel powerful. "I'm going to call the police now," Maya announced. She started to dial 911 on her phone while still recording. "I said no phone calls," Rick screamed. He raised the taser and aimed it directly at Maya's chest. Everything slowed down for Maya. She had been in this mental state many times during combat operations. Time seemed to move slowly. Every detail became crystal clear. She could see Rick's finger tightening on the taser trigger. She could see Tom fumbling with his pepper spray canister. She could see Robert taking a step backward, finally realizing he had created a situation he could not control. Maya made her decision. These men had escalated to deadly force. A taser could seriously injure or even kill someone if used incorrectly. Maya had the legal right to defend herself. More importantly, she had the training and ability to end the situation before anyone got seriously hurt. But first, she tried one last time to de-escalate. "Don't do this," Maya said quietly. "Put the weapons down and walk away. No one has to get hurt," Rick laughed. "You think you're tough? You think you can tell us what to do? I'm going to show you what happens to people who don't respect authority." He pulled the taser trigger. Maya moved faster than any of the three men expected. She twisted her body to the right as the taser probe shot past her shoulder. At the same time, she dropped her phone and stepped forward. Rick was still holding the taser, looking confused about why it had not hit her. Maya grabbed Rick's wrist with her left hand and twisted. Rick screamed as the taser fell from his hand. Maya caught it before it hit the ground. In less than 2 seconds, she had disarmed the first attacker and taken control of his weapon. Tom tried to spray her with pepper spray, but he was still holding the canister upside down. Nothing came out when he pressed the button. Maya kicked the canister out of his hands and pushed him backward. Tom stumbled and fell onto the driveway. Robert stood frozen, staring at Maya with his mouth open. His 2 tough security guards had been defeated in seconds. Maya now held Rick's taser and was clearly in control of the situation. "Nobody move," Maya said calmly. She was not even breathing hard. Rick was on his knees holding his twisted wrist and moaning. Tom was sitting on the ground looking dazed. Robert clutched his clipboard like it might protect him. Maya picked up her phone and saw that it was still recording. Good. Everything had been captured on video. She looked at the 3 men and realized they finally understood what they had gotten themselves into. "Here's what's going to happen," Maya said. "I'm going to call the real police. You're going to sit there quietly until they arrive. If any of you try to leave or make any sudden moves, you'll find out what other skills I learned in the Army." She started dialing 911 while keeping the taser pointed at the ground. Robert found his voice first. "Wait," he said. "Maybe we can work this out without involving the police." Maya looked at him coldly. "You had that option 5 minutes ago. You chose to let your fake cops pull weapons on me instead." Tom struggled to his feet. "We were just trying to keep the neighborhood safe," he said weakly. "No," Maya replied. "You were trying to intimidate someone you thought was helpless. You picked the wrong person." As Maya waited for the police dispatcher to answer her call, she looked at the 3 men who had tried to bully her. They looked small now. Their fake uniforms and fake authority meant nothing when faced with someone who had real training and real courage. Maya realized that this confrontation had been inevitable. Men like Robert, Tom, and Rick always pushed until someone pushed back. The only way to stop bullies was to show them that their victims were not as helpless as they thought. The dispatcher answered her call. 911, what's your emergency? This is Maya Johnson at 1247 Maple Street in Willowbrook, she said clearly. I need police officers here immediately. 3 men just assaulted me with weapons in my driveway. The 911 dispatcher stayed on the phone with Maya while she waited for the police to arrive. Maya kept the 3 men in her sight while she talked to the dispatcher. Rick was still holding his wrist and groaning. Tom sat on the ground looking confused. Robert stood very still like he was afraid to move. The officers should be there in about 5 minutes, the dispatcher told Maya. Are you injured? Do you need medical attention? No, I'm not hurt, Maya replied. But one of the men who attacked me might need to have his wrist looked at. Maya looked at Rick. His wrist was probably sprained from when she had twisted it to make him drop the taser. She had used just enough force to disarm him without causing permanent damage. In her training, she had learned how to hurt people badly when necessary. She had also learned how to control her strength to avoid serious injury. What happened to his wrist? The dispatcher asked. He pointed a taser at me and tried to shoot me with it. I had to disarm him. Maya could hear the dispatcher typing on a computer. Ma'am, did you say someone tried to tase you? Yes, he pulled the trigger, but I moved out of the way. Then I took the weapon away from him. Are you law enforcement or military? The dispatcher asked. Maya was not surprised by the question. Most civilians could not disarm an attacker with a taser so easily. I'm active duty Army, Maya said. Understood. The officers will want to hear the full story when they get there. Can you stay on the line until they arrive? Yes, Maya said. She looked at her 3 attackers. None of them had tried to leave, which was smart. Maya was still holding Rick's taser, and she was clearly in control of the situation. Robert finally found the courage to speak. Listen, maybe we can sort this out without involving the police, he said. This was just a misunderstanding. Maya looked at him with disgust. A misunderstanding? Your fake security team pulled weapons on me and tried to attack me. That's not a misunderstanding. That's assault with a deadly weapon. It was just a taser, Tom said weakly. It's not deadly. Maya shook her head. A taser can kill someone if it's used wrong. People die from tasers every year. You pointed a weapon at me and tried to use it. That makes it attempted assault with a deadly weapon. The 3 men looked at each other nervously. Maya could see they were starting to understand how much trouble they were in. They had thought they were just scaring a neighbor. They had not realized they were committing serious crimes. We were just trying to keep the neighborhood safe, Robert said. We thought you might be involved in criminal activity. Based on what evidence? Maya asked. Looking out my own windows? Getting mail delivered? Living in a house I paid for? Robert did not have a good answer for that. The truth was that he had targeted Maya because he did not think she belonged in his neighborhood. He had convinced Tom and Rick to harass her because he thought she would be too scared to fight back. Maya heard sirens in the distance. The police were almost there. She looked at her phone and saw that it was still recording. The entire confrontation had been captured on video. That would make it very easy for the police to understand what had really happened. Here's what you need to know, Maya said to the three men. I have 15 years of military service. I've been deployed to combat zones multiple times. I have training in hand-to-hand combat, weapons, and tactical operations. I could have seriously hurt all three of you if I had wanted to. Rick looked up at her with fear in his eyes. Tom was still sitting on the ground, looking like he might throw up. Robert clutched his clipboard and said nothing. But I didn't hurt you, Maya continued. I used just enough force to stop your attack and protect myself. I could have broken Rick's wrist instead of just spraining it. I could have knocked Tom unconscious instead of just pushing him down. I showed restraint because I'm a professional. The sirens were getting louder. Maya could see flashing lights coming down Maple Street. The police are about to arrest you for assault with a deadly weapon, Maya told them. You'll probably go to jail. You'll have criminal records. You might lose your jobs. Your families will be embarrassed. All because you decided to play cops and robbers with a real soldier. 2 police cars pulled into Maya's driveway. 4 officers got out quickly. Maya could see they were ready for a dangerous situation. They had probably been told that weapons were involved. Maya immediately put the taser on the ground and raised her hands. Even though she was the victim, she knew that police officers arriving at a scene with weapons involved would be very careful about who they trusted. I'm Maya Johnson, she called out loudly. I'm the person who called 911. I'm active duty military. These 3 men attacked me with weapons and I defended myself. The lead officer approached carefully. He was older, probably in his 40s, with gray hair and a calm manner. Maya could tell he was experienced. Ma'am, I'm Officer Davis. Can you tell me what happened here? Maya pointed to her phone on the ground. Everything is recorded on my phone. These 3 men came to my house and threatened me. They said they were conducting a security investigation, but they have no legal authority. When I tried to go inside my house, they blocked my path and pulled weapons on me. Officer Davis looked at Rick, who was still holding his wrist, and Tom, who was now standing but looked shaky. Then he looked at Robert, who was trying to appear calm but was obviously nervous. Are you gentlemen police officers? Officer Davis asked. We're neighborhood security, Robert said quickly. We were investigating suspicious activity. Officer Davis frowned. What kind of suspicious activity? Robert looked at his clipboard, but Maya could see he was struggling to come up with a good answer. Well, she was watching the neighborhood, taking pictures, having strange visitors. Taking pictures of what? Officer Davis asked. I don't know exactly, Robert admitted. Officer Davis looked at Maya. Ma'am, were you taking pictures of anything? I was documenting their harassment, Maya said. They've been leaving fake citations on my door for weeks. I was collecting evidence of their behavior. Another officer had picked up Maya's phone and was looking at it. The video is still recording, he told Officer Davis. It looks like it captured the whole thing. Officer Davis turned back to Robert, Tom, and Rick. Do any of you have law enforcement credentials? The 3 men looked at each other. Finally, Robert shook his head. So you're not police officers and you have no legal authority to investigate anything, Officer Davis said. But you detained this woman against her will and threatened her with weapons? It wasn't like that, Tom said desperately. We were just trying to ask her some questions. Officer Davis looked at Rick's taser on the ground. Is that your weapon, sir? Rick nodded miserably. And you pointed it at this woman? Rick looked like he wanted to lie, but he knew the video would show exactly what he had done. Yes, but I didn't mean to hurt her. Officer Davis shook his head. Sir, pointing a taser at someone and pulling the trigger means you intended to hurt them. That's assault with a deadly weapon. Maya watched as the reality of the situation finally hit all 3 men. They were going to be arrested. They were going to jail. Their plan to intimidate her had backfired completely. Officer Davis looked at Maya with respect. Ma'am, you showed remarkable restraint. Most people would have been seriously injured in this situation. How did you manage to disarm him so easily? I'm Delta Force, Maya said simply. Officer Davis nodded slowly. He clearly understood what that meant. Delta Force soldiers were among the best trained fighters in the world. Robert, Tom, and Rick had just tried to attack someone who could have easily killed all three of them. "Well," Officer Davis said, "I think we have enough evidence to make some arrests." Officer Davis called for backup while his partner began taking statements from Maya and the three men. Maya noticed that more police cars were arriving. Word had spread quickly that a Delta Force soldier had been attacked by fake security guards. The other officers wanted to see what had happened. A sergeant arrived and spoke quietly with Officer Davis. Maya could hear parts of their conversation. The sergeant seemed surprised that such a serious incident had happened in a quiet neighborhood like Willowbrook. He also seemed impressed that Maya had handled 3 armed attackers without seriously injuring anyone. "Ma'am, I'm Sergeant Wilson," the sergeant said, approaching Maya. "I understand you're active duty military?" "Yes, sir," Maya replied. She reached into her wallet and pulled out her military ID card.
"Staff Sergeant Maya Johnson, Delta Force." Sergeant Wilson examined the ID carefully.
Maya could see he was taking this very seriously. An attack on a Delta Force soldier was not something that happened every day. "How long have you been living in this neighborhood?" Sergeant Wilson asked. "About a month," Maya said. "I bought the house after my last deployment. I was looking for somewhere quiet to live." Sergeant Wilson looked at Robert, Tom, and Rick. They were now handcuffed and sitting in the back of police cars. "Have these men been bothering you before today?" Maya nodded. "For about 3 weeks. It started with fake HOA violations. Then they began patrolling my street and acting like police officers. Today was the first time they actually pulled weapons on me. Do you have documentation of the earlier incidents?" Maya pointed to her house. "I have photos, videos, and copies of all the fake citations they left on my door. I've been keeping records of everything." Officer Davis finished reviewing the video on Maya's phone. "Sergeant, you need to see this," he said. "It shows the entire confrontation. These men clearly committed assault with deadly weapons." Sergeant Wilson watched the video on Maya's phone. Maya could see his expression getting more serious as he watched. When Rick pulled the taser and aimed it at Maya, the sergeant shook his head in disgust. "This is unbelievable," Sergeant Wilson said. "They actually thought they could attack a trained soldier and get away with it." Another officer had been searching Tom and Rick's car. He found fake police badges, illegal radio equipment, and what looked like official police forms. All of this equipment was evidence that the men had been impersonating law enforcement officers. "Sergeant, look at this," the officer called out. He held up a box of fake police badges and official-looking documents. They'd been running a whole fake police operation. Sergeant Wilson walked over to examine the evidence. Maya could see that Tom and Rick had been very serious about their fake security roles. They had spent money on equipment and uniforms. They had made fake identification cards. This was not just a neighborhood dispute. It was organized criminal activity. Robert was sitting in one of the police cars looking very pale. Maya could see him through the window talking rapidly to an officer. He seemed to be trying to explain his way out of trouble, but Maya knew it would not work. The video evidence was too clear. A detective arrived at the scene. Maya could tell he was a detective because he wore plain clothes and had a badge on his belt. He introduced himself as Detective Martinez and asked Maya to tell him the whole story from the beginning. Maya explained how the harassment had started with fake HOA violations. She told him about Robert's pattern of targeting her specifically. She described how Tom and Rick had been patrolling the neighborhood while pretending to be police officers. "Why do you think they targeted you specifically?" Detective Martinez asked. Maya had thought about this question many times over the past few weeks. "I think Robert Sterling didn't want me living in this neighborhood. He used the HOA rules to try to force me out. When that didn't work, he recruited Tom and Rick to escalate the harassment." Detective Martinez nodded. "We see this sometimes. People use fake authority to target neighbors they don't like, but this case is more serious because weapons were involved." Maya looked around at all the police activity. Her quiet street was now full of police cars and officers. Neighbors had come out of their houses to watch. Maya could see them talking to each other and pointing at her house. "What happens now?" Maya asked. "All 3 men will be arrested and charged," Detective Martinez explained. "Robert Sterling will be charged with conspiracy and harassment. Tom and Rick will be charged with impersonating police officers, assault with deadly weapons, and unlawful detention." Maya was satisfied with this outcome. The 3 men who had terrorized her would face serious consequences for their actions. An officer approached with Maya's phone. Ma'am, we've copied the video for evidence. Your phone is ready to be returned to you. Maya took her phone and looked at the video file. It clearly showed everything that had happened. Rick pointing the taser at her. Tom trying to spray her with pepper spray. Her quick disarming of both men. The video would make it very easy for prosecutors to prove their case. Detective Martinez gave Maya his business card. You'll need to come to the station tomorrow to give a formal statement. After that, you probably won't hear much until the trial. Will they get bail? Maya asked. Probably, but they'll have conditions. They won't be allowed to come near you or your property. If they violate those conditions, they'll go back to jail immediately. Maya felt relieved. For the first time in weeks, she would be able to live in her house without worrying about harassment. Sergeant Wilson approached Maya as the other officers were finishing their work. Ma'am, I want to apologize for what happened to you. This kind of behavior is not acceptable in our community. Thank you, Maya said. I'm just glad it's over. I have to ask, Sergeant Wilson said. You could have seriously hurt those men. Why didn't you? Maya thought about her answer. In Delta Force, we're taught to use only the force necessary to complete the mission. My mission was to stop the attack and protect myself. I didn't need to break bones or knock anyone unconscious to accomplish that. Sergeant Wilson nodded with respect. That's the mark of a true professional. As the police cars drove away with Robert, Tom, and Rick inside, Maya finally felt like she could relax. The threat was over. The men who had harassed her were in custody. She could finally have the peaceful life she had been looking for. Maya picked up her grocery bags, which were still sitting on her driveway. The ice cream had probably melted, but everything else would be fine. She walked to her front door and used her key to go inside. Her house felt different now. Before, it had felt like a place under siege. Now it felt like home. Maya put her groceries away and sat down in her living room. She looked out the window at her street. It was quiet again. Maya's phone rang. The caller ID showed it was her commanding officer. News of the incident had already reached her unit. Johnson, I just got a call from the local police, her commander said. Are you all right? Yes, sir. No injuries. The situation is resolved. Good. Do you need any time off to deal with this? Maya thought about it. No, sir. I'll be back on duty as scheduled. Outstanding. And Johnson? Yes, sir. Good work showing restraint. You represented the unit well. Maya hung up the phone and smiled. She had handled the situation exactly the way she had been trained to handle it. She had protected herself without causing unnecessary harm. She had gathered evidence and worked with law enforcement. She had been professional throughout the entire ordeal. Most importantly, she had shown that bullies could not intimidate everyone. Sometimes they picked on the wrong person. 3 days after the arrests, Detective Martinez called Maya with an update. The investigation had revealed much more than anyone had expected. Robert Sterling's harassment campaign against Maya was just the tip of the iceberg. We've been interviewing other residents in your neighborhood, Detective Martinez told Maya over the phone. It turns out you weren't Sterling's only target. Maya was not surprised. Bullies like Robert usually had multiple victims. What did you find out? Sterling has been using the HOA to harass at least 6 other families over the past 2 years. All of them were minorities or people he considered undesirable for the neighborhood. Detective Martinez explained that Robert had a pattern. He would target new residents who didn't fit his idea of what Willowbrook should look like. He would use fake HOA violations to make their lives difficult. If that didn't work, he would escalate to other forms of harassment. What about Tom and Rick? Maya asked. That's where it gets really interesting, Detective Martinez said. We found out that Sterling hired them specifically to intimidate residents. He paid them $50 a day to patrol the neighborhood and harass people. Maya shook her head. Robert had been running a criminal enterprise disguised as neighborhood security. He had recruited 2 men with no training or authority and given them fake police equipment. Then he had sent them out to terrorize his neighbors. We also found something else, Detective Martinez continued. Tom and Rick had been planning to escalate their activities. They had purchased more weapons and were talking about conducting raids on houses they considered suspicious. Maya felt a chill. If she had not stopped them when she did, Tom and Rick might have eventually broken into someone's home. They might have seriously hurt innocent people. The detective told Maya that several other neighbors had come forward with stories about Tom and Rick. The fake security guards had been stopping people on the street and demanding identification. They had been looking through people's car windows and writing fake tickets. They had even followed some residents to see where they worked. Why didn't anyone call the police before? Maya asked. Most people thought they were real security guards, Detective Martinez explained. Sterling had convinced the neighborhood that they were legitimate. People were scared to complain because they thought it might make the harassment worse. Maya understood this reasoning. Many people did not want to make trouble even when they were being treated unfairly. They hoped the problem would go away on its own. But problems like Robert Sterling did not go away. They only got worse until someone stood up to them. 2 weeks later, Maya received another call from Detective Martinez. The local news stations had picked up the story. A reporter wanted to interview Maya about what had happened. Maya was not sure she wanted to talk to the media. She valued her privacy, and her military work required her to keep a low profile. But Detective Martinez said the story might help other people who were facing similar harassment. The reporter is very professional, Detective Martinez assured her. She's not looking for sensational headlines. She wants to do a serious story about fake police and HOA abuse. Maya agreed to meet with the reporter. Her name was Sarah Chen, and she worked for the local CBS affiliate. Sarah came to Maya's house and conducted the interview in Maya's living room. "What was going through your mind when Rick pointed the taser at you?" Sarah asked. Maya thought carefully about her answer. "My training took over. I assessed the threat and responded appropriately. I wanted to stop the attack without anyone getting seriously hurt." Sarah asked Maya about her military background. Maya was careful not to reveal too much about her specific missions or training, but she explained that Delta Force soldiers were taught to use minimal force necessary to complete their objectives. "Do you think your race played a role in how you were treated?" Sarah asked. Maya had expected this question. It was something she had thought about many times since moving to Willowbrook. "I can't read minds," Maya said, "but I can tell you that I was treated differently than other residents from the day I moved in." The harassment started immediately and escalated quickly. Other neighbors have told me they never experienced anything like what I went through. The news story aired 2 days later. Sarah Chen had done an excellent job presenting the facts without sensationalizing them. The story showed Maya as a professional soldier who had been victimized by fake police officers. It also highlighted the problem of HOA abuse and vigilante groups. The story went viral on social media. People from all over the country shared it and commented on it. Many viewers expressed outrage at what had happened to Maya. Others shared their own stories of being harassed by HOAs or fake security guards. The publicity had an immediate impact on the legal case. The district attorney announced that his office would prosecute Robert, Tom, and Rick to the full extent of the law. The charges were upgraded to include hate crime enhancements because there was evidence that Maya had been targeted based on her race. Maya also received an unexpected phone call from a lawyer who specialized in civil rights cases. The lawyer explained that Maya could sue Robert Sterling, Tom, Rick, and the HOA for violating her civil rights. "You have an excellent case," the lawyer told Maya. "The video evidence is clear, and the pattern of harassment is well documented. We could probably win a significant settlement." Maya decided to pursue the civil case. She wanted to make sure that Robert Sterling faced financial consequences for his actions. She also wanted to send a message to other bullies that there were serious costs for targeting innocent people. The criminal trial began 3 months later. Maya testified about the harassment campaign and the final confrontation. The video of Rick pointing the taser at her was played in court. Several neighbors testified about their own experiences with Robert's harassment. Robert Sterling's lawyer tried to argue that his client had been genuinely concerned about neighborhood security. But the evidence against Robert was overwhelming. The jury found him guilty of conspiracy, harassment, and civil rights violations. Tom and Rick both pleaded guilty to avoid longer sentences. Tom was sentenced to 2 years in prison. Rick got 3 years because he had been the one who actually pulled the weapon on Maya. Robert Sterling was sentenced to 5 years in prison. The judge said that Sterling had abused his position as HOA president to terrorize his neighbors. The judge also noted that Sterling's actions could have led to someone being seriously injured or killed. The civil case was settled out of court. Maya received a substantial financial settlement from Robert Sterling's insurance company. The HOA also agreed to pay damages and to implement new policies to prevent harassment of residents. Maya donated most of the settlement money to organizations that helped military veterans and civil rights groups. She kept enough to make some improvements to her house, but she did not want to profit from what had happened to her. The story had one more positive outcome. The Willowbrook HOA was completely reformed after Robert Sterling's conviction. New board members were elected, and new rules were put in place to prevent abuse. The fake security patrol was permanently disbanded. Maya received hundreds of letters and emails from people who had seen the news story. Many were from other military veterans who thanked her for representing them well. Others were from people who had faced similar harassment and found inspiration in Maya's story. One letter came from a young black woman who was considering joining the military. She wrote that Maya's example had shown her that she could be strong and successful, even when facing unfair treatment. Maya kept that letter on her refrigerator. It reminded her that her ordeal had not been for nothing. By standing up to bullies and fighting back, she had helped other people find the courage to stand up for themselves. The incident also had an impact on Maya's military career. Her commanding officer recommended her for a commendation for showing exceptional restraint and professionalism under extreme stress. The citation noted that Maya had represented the military with honor even while off duty. Most importantly for Maya, the publicity led to changes in how fake police officers were prosecuted in her state. New laws were passed that made it easier to arrest and convict people who impersonated law enforcement officers. The penalties were increased, and police departments were given better tools to investigate these crimes. Maya felt proud that her experience had led to positive changes. She had not chosen to be a victim, but when she was victimized, she had fought back in the right way. She had used the legal system instead of violence. She had documented everything properly. She had worked with real law enforcement instead of taking matters into her own hands. The result was justice for herself and protection for future victims. 1 year after the confrontation with Robert Sterling and his fake security team, Maya's life in Willowbrook had completely changed. The neighborhood that had once felt hostile now felt like home. Maya had finally found the peace she had been looking for when she bought her house. The transformation had not happened overnight. After Robert Sterling was sent to prison and Tom and Rick were convicted, the neighborhood had to rebuild itself. Many residents felt embarrassed that they had allowed the harassment to continue for so long. Others were angry that they had been fooled by fake security guards. Maya played an important role in healing the community. Instead of holding grudges against her neighbors, she chose to help them understand what had really happened. She attended HOA meetings and explained how Sterling had manipulated people into believing his lies about neighborhood security. "Robert Sterling convinced many of you that I was a threat," Maya told the residents at one meeting. But the real threat was Sterling himself. He used fear to control people and silence anyone who questioned him. Maya's calm and professional approach impressed her neighbors. They could see that she was not seeking revenge or trying to make them feel bad. She genuinely wanted to help the neighborhood become a better place for everyone. The new HOA board asked Maya to serve as the head of the safety committee. Maya accepted the position because she wanted to make sure the neighborhood had real security. Instead of fake security, she used her military experience to develop actual safety procedures that would protect residents without violating their rights. Maya organized neighborhood watch meetings where residents learned how to identify real threats versus imaginary ones. She taught them the difference between being alert and being paranoid. She also made sure everyone knew how to contact real police officers instead of trusting fake ones. Under Maya's leadership, Willowbrook became one of the safest neighborhoods in the city. Crime rates went down because residents were working together instead of being divided by fear and suspicion. The real police department praised the neighborhood for being a model of community cooperation. Maya also made personal connections with many of her neighbors. Mrs. Patterson, an elderly woman who lived next door, became one of Maya's closest friends. Mrs. Patterson had been too afraid to speak up when Tom and Rick were patrolling the streets, but she had been worried about what they might do to innocent people. "I'm so sorry I didn't help you when those men were harassing you," Mrs. Patterson told Maya one day over coffee. "You were scared," Maya replied. "That's understandable. Sterling wanted people to be scared so they wouldn't question what he was doing." Mrs. Patterson shook her head. "But you weren't scared. Even when they had weapons, you stood up to them." Maya smiled. "I was scared too, but I had training that helped me deal with the fear. Most people don't have that training, and that's okay." Maya's friendship with Mrs. Patterson led to other friendships in the neighborhood. People who had once been suspicious of Maya now saw her as a protector and leader. Children played in her yard, and neighbors borrowed tools from her garage. The house that had once felt like a fortress now felt like the center of a community. Maya hosted barbecues in her backyard and holiday parties in her living room. She had finally found the sense of belonging she had been searching for. Maya's story also had an impact beyond Willowbrook. The news coverage had made her a minor celebrity in the military community. She received invitations to speak at military bases about leadership and standing up to bullies. Maya was initially reluctant to speak publicly about her experience. She preferred her privacy and did not want to be known as the soldier who fought fake cops, but her commanding officer encouraged her to share her story because it could help other service members. "You showed that our training works even in civilian situations," her commander told her. "Other soldiers need to hear that they can defend themselves and their communities while still following the law." Maya began giving speeches at military events and veterans gatherings. She talked about the importance of de-escalation and using appropriate force. She emphasized that being a good soldier meant protecting people, not hurting them unnecessarily. Young soldiers especially connected with Maya's message. Many of them worried about how they would fit into civilian communities after their military service ended. Maya showed them that their skills could be used to make neighborhoods safer and stronger. Maya also spoke at police academies about the difference between real law enforcement and vigilante groups. She helped train officers to recognize fake police and deal with civilians who tried to impersonate law enforcement. Real police officers have training, accountability, and legal authority, Maya told one group of police cadets. Fake police have none of these things, which makes them dangerous to everyone. The civil rights settlement from her lawsuit allowed Maya to make improvements to her house and property. She installed a professional security system and added a workshop in her garage. She also set up a small gym where she could maintain her physical fitness. But Maya's most important purchase was a scholarship fund for young people from Willowbrook who wanted to attend college or join the military. She named it the Sterling Prevention Fund, in honor of preventing future Robert Sterlings from terrorizing their communities. The first recipient of the scholarship was Marcus, a young black man who lived 3 streets over from Maya. Marcus had been one of Robert Sterling's targets before Maya moved to the neighborhood. Sterling had accused Marcus of being in a gang simply because he wore baggy clothes and listened to hip-hop music. "Mrs. Johnson changed everything for me," Marcus said at the scholarship ceremony. "She showed me that I didn't have to accept being treated unfairly. She also showed me that I could use my experiences to help other people." Marcus used the scholarship to study criminal justice in college. His goal was to become a police officer so he could make sure that real law enforcement served all people fairly. Maya's transformation of Willowbrook was recognized by the city government. The mayor presented her with a key to the city and declared an official Maya Johnson Day to honor her contributions to community safety. "Staff Sergeant Johnson represents the best of our city," the mayor said at the ceremony. "She faced adversity with courage and turned a bad situation into something positive for everyone." Maya was embarrassed by all the attention, but she was proud of what the neighborhood had accomplished together. Willowbrook was now a place where people looked out for each other, instead of looking for reasons to be suspicious. 2 years after the incident, Maya received an unexpected visitor. Detective Martinez came to her house with news about Robert Sterling. "Sterling is getting out of prison next month," Detective Martinez told Maya. "He'll be on parole for 3 years, and one of his conditions is that he can't return to Willowbrook." Maya was not worried about Robert's release. The man who had terrorized the neighborhood was no longer a threat. His fake authority was gone, his accomplices were in prison, and the community was united against bullies like him. "What's he going to do when he gets out?" Maya asked. "He'll have to live in a halfway house across town," Detective Martinez replied. "He lost his house, his job, and most of his savings paying for lawyers and fines. He's not in a position to bother anyone anymore." Maya felt no satisfaction in Robert's downfall. She had never wanted to destroy him. She had just wanted him to stop harassing innocent people. But she was glad that he would not be able to hurt other residents. As Detective Martinez prepared to leave, he shook Maya's hand. "You know, we've had several similar cases since your incident. People who saw your story have been more willing to report fake police and HOA abuse." Maya was pleased to hear this. Her goal had always been to help other people avoid what she had gone through. That evening, Maya sat in her backyard and reflected on how much her life had changed. 2 years ago, she had been a soldier looking for a quiet place to live. Now she was a community leader who had helped transform an entire neighborhood. Maya's phone buzzed with a text message from Mrs. Patterson. "Don't forget about the block party planning meeting tomorrow. We're counting on you to organize the security volunteers." Maya smiled and typed back, "I'll be there." She looked around her backyard at the garden she had planted and the deck she had built. This was more than just a house now. This was home. This was where she belonged. Maya had finally found her peace, but it was not the quiet, isolated peace she had originally wanted. Instead, it was the peace that came from being part of a community that valued all of its members. She had learned that true security did not come from keeping people out. It came from bringing people together, and that was a lesson she would carry with her for the rest of her life. The fake cops who had pulled a gun on Maya thought they knew who they were dealing with. They thought she was just another person they could intimidate and control. They were wrong about everything. Maya was Delta Force, but more importantly, she was a person who refused to be bullied, and in the end, that made all the difference.